Hi, welcome to the USS KIDD Veterans Museum YouTube channel. This is part 2 of a 2-part video series talking about KIDD's Rudder. We're joined by Battleship, New Jersey curator Ryan Szimanski. Welcome.
It's been like 6 months since I've gotten to see a ship in dry dock. I've been jonesing for some more ship out of the water. I got to see them rudders.
I'm not going. So, we were talking earlier about the Fletcher class design and how the World War II rudder was kind of undersized and what they did in the Cold War to fix that. And you had a question about what we've done here.
Good clean cuts. I like the work.
Nice clean cuts. So what ended up happening in April when we were getting ready to leave Baton Rouge, in the early 2000s, there was some problems with who was going to cut the trees on the river front and everything. A lot of willows would grow up during the dry season.
Okay.
And the two different agencies were kind of in battle of it's your job, no, it's your job, back and forth. So for about 2.5 years, nothing got cut, and I could stand on the stern of the KIDD and reach out and touch the willow trees that were growing up behind us. And what that did, it slows water down, and the river would drop silt. So behind us, the riverbed built up maybe about 2-3 feet.
Okay.
Because of that over those 2 years. So in order for us to get out, what we had to do after surveying the riverbed was we had to shave about 3 and a couple of spots, 4 feet off of the bottom of our rudder in order for us to slide out of the cradle to the back and out into the river. So that's why this looks so bad and why people on YouTube are going, you let the rudder rot off.
Hello darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
We didn't let it rot off, we actually cut it.
But you couldn't do this while the ship was high and dry, like standing in the mud. This was divers that did this.
Divers that did this from Budwine Associates. They spent about 2 days down in water with maybe 6 to 8 inches of visibility.
I've gotten to visit KIDD while she was at her normal berth. Yeah. It's like chocolate milk that you're floating in.
Chocolate milk. It's like melted fudge sometimes. But yeah, they're working with that sort of visibility. You've got an 8-knot current.
Holy cow.
So, and fortunately where we're standing, you've got the props that are kind of sheltering the divers a little bit. You've got the cradle that would be there blocking some of the flow, but it's still not easy work with that little visibility, and you're sliding to one side and trying to find where you're cutting.
I can't cut a straight line in my garage with the pencil drawn on it and the table saw, so I'm amazed that they got like basically right under this weld seam all the way across.
And you can see right about here the markings of where an addition went on. So they're cutting roughly right about where the addition went, maybe just a little bit above it. But yeah, this would be an example of the shortened rudder that you would have had in World War II. So we're part of the way there for that retrofit. We just got to clean it up and mold it a little bit better, and then of course take off the back end of the rudder as well.
Oh yeah, show me where that addition was. That's
that
visible as well?
Right about here.
Okay, yeah, and without the chop marks, that is very obvious. You can tell that the plate's curving in, and then there's just this extension right here coming out of this weld.
Right. So getting rid of that, making sure it's a sealed rudder, no water intrusion or anything, that's the biggest challenge. So yeah, we're part way there. All we got to do is shave this off, clean this up, maybe add a little bit more to it to get it back to the right shape and make sure there's no water intrusion, and we've got a World War II rudder.
And you're the only surviving Fletcher that would have that.
Yeah, in fact, Sullivan's does not have her rudder or her props. They got rid of those at some point in her history. I'm not sure about Cass and Young. I think Cass and Young might still have her rudder, but I'd need to go back and look at her 2012 dry docking and see the pictures. But yeah, we're the only one that would have a World War II rudder if we're able to pull this off.
And Velos has been in dry dock recently, but I don't remember what her what she has.
Yet, so. But yeah, But it's real interesting, the other piece of the rudder that we pulled up off the riverbed, it's back in Baton Rouge in our warehouse.
So when you cut this, it dropped and then you recovered that because it's original fabric from the ship.
Our original thought was just put it back in place and everything, but then we got to looking at it and we're like, this is an opportunity. We might be able to educate a little bit better and go from there. So.
Yeah, you've been working towards this goal for 40 years now, backdating the ship to a World War II configuration.
Right.
And this yard period is basically the only opportunity you'd have to do that.
At least in my lifetime. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully. But yeah, I understand you've got to hit the road, you and Libby?
Yeah, we got to fly back to our ship.
Okay. Well, stick around, guys. We will hop on the highway after Ryan and Libby leave, and we will take you back to Baton Rouge to the KIDD Cave, where Nathan Bergeron is, and we'll talk about the piece of the rudder that we still got.
I'll see you when KIDD makes it back home.
All right. Good having you here, buddy.
Good seeing you, Tim.
Well, here we are in the KIDD Cave in Baton Rouge. It seems like it was just seconds coming up here, but you know, it was 2 hours going down. But that's movie magic, right? So this is the bottom of the rudder that we cut off, and as you can see, it's a little jagged, just like what you see in the shipyard. But over here, it's a solid straight shot all the way down. It did not rot to pieces and fall off, and there's no serious degradation. This is no worse than anything that's on the ship right now, and it's all one solid piece. So we did cut it off with our friends from Budwine, and Miss Molly on the trip up made note that when metal gets to the point to where it's going to rot off something like this, it's going to get thin. But look how thick this is. This is near original thickness. So again, it did not rot to pieces. This was purposely cut off the ship. Now, what's interesting is if you look down inside, you can see the connection point, and you can see it right up here on the top where the rudder addition was put on in the Cold War. That's the seam right there. So, as Mr. Nate pointed out a moment ago, this that I'm touching right here is what everybody gets excited about, pre-atomic steel.
There was much rejoicing.
You can go and check out our video on that. And then this is post-atomic steel. This is the addition that was put on in 1951. Now, if you look down inside here, all this black residue, this is linseed oil. This is a preservative that was pumped into the rudder to help keep the interior of it nice and clean and rust-free, prevent corrosion. And they would do that periodically. You have points on the rudder to where you can open it up, little portals. You can do tests on it, make sure it's not taking in any seawater. They'll pump air in there, they'll pump water in there, and then they'll pump in the linseed oil. So we can see now exactly what we've got here in the warehouse. And hey, Christmas coming up next year. It's a little too late for this year, but what are we going to do with this? Since it's just about the same height that we need to reduce the rudder by on the ship, we don't have to do too much to the bottom of the rudder other than clean it up, maybe add a couple of points where they got a little deep on it. But what will happen to this? This is going to be turned into souvenirs. So stay tuned to our YouTube channel and to our social media, and you'll be able to buy a piece of the rudder from the USS KIDD. Miss Molly, I believe we have some firsthand footage from our friends at Budwine. Yep. Showing how they accomplished this. Yeah. Would this be a good time to see it?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's take a look at that.
I'm one of the divers that we're working on the rudder, trying to make sure it clears the bottom and all the structures down there. So we cut off a couple feet. Then we're checking the cradles, making sure there's no obstructions for that, and then patching some leaks. Basically, we took some measurements off the radar dome as well, make sure that's going to clear the cradles. So when McKinney's come over here, we get it out of here. Yeah, a whole lot of nothing. I mean, you see, close your eyes, it's about what you see. It's all about feel. So I'm just going around feeling, see if I feel any suction, checking all these cradles and all that. But yeah, you can't use your eyes. You're not using your eyes. It's all feel. And then you got about a 2-knot current going, so it's basically flapping in the wind. Think Superman, that's about what you're doing. You hold on. Yeah, put on a lot of weight and hold on. Find something to grab to. At this depth, we can stay for, it's about 16 hours or so. So I mean, we can spend all day down there. Yeah, usually we try to do about 3 to 4 hour bottom times and switch out divers because it is tiring. Some of this equipment, all right, well, this one is our hot water unit. Since the water's still kind of cold, we need to have hot water to the diver so he doesn't freeze to death. So basically have a water hose that shoots our hot water, just stick it down our wetsuit and basically like a little jacuzzi. So. Absolutely, you always have comms with a diver. If you don't have comms with a diver, we'll abort our dive and recover them in a safe manner. But yeah, communication is like paramount when you're diving. When y'all say we're done. The ship sinking? No, the ship's not going to sink. I don't think it's going to sink. If it does, I'll be here to pick it up. But no, I don't think it's going to be sinking. Yeah, I think we're pretty close to getting this thing out of here and down to Houma.
As you can see, it's not quite as easy as everybody says sometimes. Quite an effort to cut it off, but good on Budwine. They did a fabulous job and got us out of the cradle.
So what is that metal at the bottom, that strip?
Right here?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I tell you what, let's bring in our metal expert. Nate Bergeron, can you come over?
Sure, no problem, Tim.
Molly wants to know about the difference in the metal right here.
Yeah.
What can you tell us?
Well, this is a hardened steel weld all the way from the nose of the rudder to the tail end. It's a 306 stainless. Pretty hard. It's corrosion resistant. Also a lot harder and wear resistant to the actual steel that's on here. Why would you want to do something like that? Well, number one, you don't want it to rust off, this wear plate that's on the bottom. Number two, if you're going to attach something, a wear plate, you would like to use weld or wear-resistant welding all around it. It's very expensive. These are like 2 or 3 times the cost of regular steel. It's a slow process, but it works great. If you need to remove it, it's really hard, really difficult. You can't really cut it with a torch. You've got to grind it off. It's stainless steel. Basically, it doesn't oxidize too well, so you would have to grind it off.
So Nate, clarify for me. The stainless is the weld material
Yes.
or the entire plate?
The entire plate appears to be steel. You can look at the corrosion as it comes off.
Hardened steel?
The weld material is stainless.
It's stainless. Okay. So stainless on the weld, hardened steel for the rest of the plate.
Exactly.
Okay.
You mentioned something about a drain line or an access line. In addition to the ones that are on the side of the rudder, you can also
got 'em on
see
the bottom.
these on the bottom. It'd be very unusual to see it unless you were digging underneath. This is basically, it's set in the mud, I think around right here, huh, Tim?
Right about where Nate's hand is going back and forth. It was
Yeah.
about that deep in the mud.
Yeah, so all this was set in the mud and a lot of motion. Only getting some air when it came up, when the river was high in the spring usually, and then right back down into the mud later on.
And the important thing to note about that, it's not really causing pressure on the ship when the ship sits down because all of that mud is very, very soft. It's
Sure.
silt
Yeah.
in the Mississippi River, so it's soupy. If I stepped in it, I would go up to my waist.
Yeah.
So when the ship sits down, it's soft, it's gooey, it's like cake batter almost. And then as the river recedes, and it gets out in the sun, then it hardens around the rudder. So it's a little different from what our friends were experiencing in San Diego, where the midway, her rudder was slamming into the bottom. That was actually having an adverse impact on her by shoving the rudder post up and damaging the rear structure of the carrier.
And that was tidal up there, right, Tim?
That's tidal,
Yep.
and so that happens daily for them.
In this case, you know, the process is very, very slow, maybe an inch or so at the most a day,
Right.
because it's seasonal, the Mississippi being seasonal,
Right.
it changes. So you just go into the mud softly, a little bit, you know, no resistance at all.
Right. Well, guys, that is our experience with the rudder, and we appreciate you tuning in and watching. Remember, the USS KIDD Veterans Museum is a non-funded state agency that receives no regular state or federal funding. If you'd like to support our dry dock effort, please feel free to go to usskidd.com and donate. Every video you watch on our YouTube channel also generates money for the museum, so we appreciate that. We've also got links down below to go to those locations. And don't forget, the Battleship New Jersey Memorial and Museum is also a nonprofit, and they can use all the help that they can get. Thanks to our friends Ryan and Libby for coming down to join us in dry dock and take a look around. It's always a pleasure. We are all #1Fleet. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.